Lamont, think of the last time you went and got street tacos. How much was each taco?
I have a really cool place around here. And so they're about like they're different prices on different days.
Yeah.
So on Tuesdays and Thursdays they're really cheap. I think they're like 99 cents
Yeah.
each.
Yeah.
Outside of that there's like $1 or something.
Yeah. And even if you go to some place like Del Taco, it's like $1 or something,
Yeah.
right?
So they have a lot of 99-cent tacos at Del Taco.
Okay, let me tell you something that's going to make you angry. In Hawaii, if you go to a restaurant and buy a taco, it's anywhere from $3 to $6.
That is ridiculous.
And there's a few people that are trying to open up like little um like taco trucks and like you know how people open up on like the side of the street little like small mom and pop places. There is still like $2-3, and I'm like, y'all gots to be kidding me.
Those better be some really good tacos. Y'all better season them to the
They
gods.
better be the best damn tacos I've ever had.
I'm Lamont, and I'm celebrating my 1/4 of Latino heritage this month.
And I'm Leah. I always get mistaken for a Latina, but I'm not.
And
You're
you're tuning into
to
the
Lamont
Lamont
and
and
Leah
Leah
podcast.
podcast. So, if you didn't guess from the introduction, we are celebrating Latino heritage this month. And to help us celebrate, we have invited back the gorgeous professor, Francisco Rodriguez, and my dear friend, Elvira Vargas. And they'll be talking with us today, and we'll be learning a little bit more about Latinx culture and how it came about, and how we can better support each other.
Awesome. Sounds great.
All right, welcome back, Francisco, and welcome, Elvira, to the Lamont and Leah podcast. Francisco, would you take a moment to reintroduce yourself to our listening and viewer audience? And Elvira, after Francisco's done, will you please introduce yourself to our listener and viewer audience?
Yeah, so I'm Francisco. I am a communication instructor in SoCal. So I've been teaching for a couple years now, almost or 3 years, communication courses mainly. I also do, I've also done like human resources type of work. And I like to say that I like to be pretty active with community based work. A lot of the times it involves like LGBT related things or people of color, POC related work or research and things like that. Um, and that's mainly my main like area of interest.
Excellent.
Hi, my name is Elvira, and welcome, guys. But basically, what I am a soon-to-be registered associate marriage and family therapist and clinical counselor. And most of my work has been in the working with at-risk youth and families for the past 8 years. And I also worked in the after school program and doing the educational part and working close with low income communities and things like that. So, and that's pretty much it. And I also am colleague and friend of Lamont. And so that's pretty much my introduction.
All right, thanks, guys. So we are celebrating National Hispanic Heritage Month. It's the month of September, and we're celebrating it. And that's going to be our topic today, Latinx culture. And we kind of want to learn a little bit more about it. So the first question is, well, Leigh, did you want to ask the first question, or did you want me to ask the first question?
Um, uh, I'll ask my follow-up question after.
Cool. All right. What is Latinx, and how would you explain it to someone who's not familiar with the term?
Well, the dictionary translation, the what we know as far as um, dictionary and Google tells us is that Latinx means it's a non-binary, non-gender um, to the word Latino or Latina. So just to be more inclusive, more inclusive terminology, and to our LGBTQIA community, and just to be more inclusive in our own language and the way we express ourselves. And that's my understanding of the Latinx term.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I also agree. Latinx is typically um, used as a genderless. It's taking away the A and the O, which is feminine and masculine in Spanish language. It's supposed to be inclusive. There's always ongoing debates about the term Latinx, but yeah, in general, like Latinx is just meant to be more inclusive, and it's also supposed to like uh, uh, kind of like respect the indigenous um, cultures as well, like just people being mixed with indigenous blood. So it kind of wants to cover like the whole thing. It's almost like an umbrella term, as far as I know.
Right.
And I've heard people say that they don't really like the phrase Latinx, uh, and that it was like created by non Latinx people, and that like the more, I guess, true to the language would be Latine. Thoughts? I don't know. That's what I've heard. You guys have any thoughts on that?
I mean, so I've heard one of the issues with Latinx is um, that the X itself is mainly like it derives from Mexican culture.
Mm-hmm.
But the term Latinx really just refers to everyone. So, even if you're like from Guatemala or El Salvador, you can still be Latinx. But the issue that they have is that Latinx itself um, derives from just Mexican culture. So then they're saying, how is that inclusive if it's a term from that culture, right? So, and you want to cover everyone with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then also just the fact that a lot of people argue that it's an academic word, so like it was made in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
and not somewhere else. But I don't really stand by that argument too much, because I think the main purpose defeats like you know everything else, right? Because at the end of the day, it's about inclusivity. So um, mhm.
All right. Thank you. Elvira, what are your thoughts?
And so, it's kind of interesting, the term.
Mm-hmm.
I find the term actually pretty interesting as far as the inclusivity. I think it's definitely that's the purpose of it, and I think that's what it serves. My only argument is if we wanted to get academic, I guess it wouldn't be Latinx, it would just be Latin, because we're talking about Latin American countries and things like that. And if you ask like my parents who are Mexican, like full-blooded Mexicans, I asked them, do you guys consider yourself Latinx or Latino or Latina? They're like, we're from North America, so they see it more continental than geographical term. So they're like, we're North Americans. That's what we are, because we belong to the North American hemisphere of it all. So I'm like, okay. So it's really like those confusing terms that we're trying to pinpoint. But I think if we spend a lot of energy trying to define, we might get lost in the sauce
Yeah.
of it all. That the purpose is to include everyone as part of our, because we are so diverse. We are a diverse culture. We have, we are unique in itself. We have a history that often is not told to us in school. And we definitely need to start including our history as, as being the Western Hemisphere. and what our stories are of our indigenous, brothers and sisters, their stories, and include their story in as part of our upbringing. And so it's definitely one of those things, one of those terms that is just, if we try to find some definition or some specific thing to it, I think we get lost in the sauce of, hey, this is an opportunity for us to learn more about our culture and how different and diverse we are.
Okay.
Awesome.
So I feel like you guys kind of answered the next question, which is why is understanding the term Latinx important and why do we need people on board? And so what I was hearing is about inclusivity, it's about diversity, it's about learning how similar we are, but it's still celebrating our differences. Do I got it right?
Yes, that is correct.
All right. So, like, is there any other reason why it's important for people to start engaging or using this term?
Hmm. That's a good question because I'm a person that I don't often use Latinx as a term. Um, I usually, if I, when somebody asks me, are you Latinx, or I'm Latina. These are my terms. These are my pronouns, and I'm very firm on that because as part of my identity, I embraced my culture as being female, and just and everything that comes with being a female, especially in a Hispanic household. And so and I'm proud of it. So that's pretty much my answer.
Yeah, as for myself, I also just like I typically just identify as Latino. Um, I know when it comes to like academic writing, I will use the terms interchangeably. Um, but I don't necessarily like prefer Latinx over like Latino or Latina. I think if people should always have the option, right, to choose whichever one they want to use. But um, I know like for the title of my thesis, I had all three. And then throughout the paper, I just kind of so like I would switch them around, right? So just use them interchangeably, and I mean that seems to work fine. So that's just kind of like my take on it.
All right. Thank you, guys. Thank you. So, how do you guys celebrate your Latinx culture? And how can others help celebrate with you?
I have a very empowering mother. She started her own business and she started her doing her own thing. And she's been working in a very male dominating field, which is architecture and engineering. And so she has her own business now, her own firm, and she definitely does her thing. And the way that I celebrate it is by embracing everything that they've done and using it as a motivating factor to what I want to accomplish, and also not denying my identity, because I
Okay.
think as far as I am a very I'm a natural leader when it comes to finding myself in spaces as being the only POC in the room, and not denying that. That's the way that I celebrate my culture, because it's easy for us to hide and kind of go blend in, try to find ourselves blending back into the background, and kind of not participating and holding firm in our identity. So celebrating who I am and what I do and where I come from, and not denying it is very essential. And I think it happens. I don't know about you, Francisco, but do you feel like it happens with kids who are trying to assimilate, especially coming from migrant families? Like, you're trying to assimilate into the, American culture, and it's just like you're trying to find your space, but at the same time, not, you don't want to deny where you come from, because we experience, our American experience is a bit different from everyone else's.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that like as a Latino, I can't speak for everyone, but I feel like a lot of us do have a very similar journey. And I think it's because of like the interesting relationship that Mexico and the US have always had. Like even if you look at the history, there's always been like some type of war, some type of hate, violence. But then at the same time, it's like people also, you know, they the reason why they come to this country is because they need opportunity, because they're escaping war, they're escaping violence, poverty. You know what I mean? So all of these are reasons why our families are over here. But then once we're here, you become like first generation or second generation, and then it's a whole different culture, right? Because now you're kind of like you're half and half, right? And so you don't want to forget about your uh just like specifically Mexico, right? Your Mexican culture, but then at the same time, you also have your American culture. So then it's almost like a third atmosphere, right? Because you're not fully American, but you're not fully Mexican. So um and I've always thought that was really interesting. I mean, I talk about that I've spoke about that in my thesis, and how that often plays really differently for everyone because everyone can have a different journey. um but for me, like also just, I mean, I feel like something that a lot of people don't know or kind of oversee sometimes is like Mexico is a very, very diverse country. And if you look at the history, like, there's been there's like Afro Mexicans, and from when the African Americans crossed over, there's Chinese Mexicans from when the Chinese crossed over um, to Mexico, and then they would try to come to the US. So there's a lot of history and a lot of mixtures that happen, and people are not aware of that. So then we have like this stereotype of what Mexico is or what people in Mexico look like. Um, and even I myself, right? Because I've looked into this before, so I always acknowledge that I can also be um, what we call in academia like a you could be a colonized colonizer, right? Because I've always referred myself as a white passing Latino, which means like technically I can still be colonizing people even though my own people have been colonized, right? So that's like a whole nother um chapter of like self
Right.
healing and discovering that you have to go through, because you're I don't navigate the same as other people who don't look like me, right? Even though we could be from the same place.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. I didn't realize people would call you you a colonizer. So
Well, the thing is, for us that are more light skinned Mexican Latinos or Latinx, that are more light skinned, we have this thing where I think, and I totally, and Francisco, you reminded me of my best friend. She's actually, her dad is African American and her mom's Mexican. And so she's more darker skinned than I am. And I remember we love going to Disneyland. Her and I are just like adult Disneyland fans. And so we were both at Disneyland, and, we were just having dinner, and this family just kept looking at her and just kind of just sizing her up. And I didn't realize, because I've been through some situations where, I've been discriminated against or for my culture or anything like that, or for my ideas and my own thoughts, but I've never experienced where I get certain looks or I get certain things. And for her, she experiences it all the time. And over time, I would observe that she would get certain looks or certain just dismissive behaviors of people with her. And so to me, she's Afro Latina, so to me, she's she's beautiful. So and not just to say that, what I wanted to say is I never really thought about that until recently when I sat down with her and I said, hey, I just want to apologize to you because I never said anything about this particular situation. And I want to acknowledge that, because it's important for me to acknowledge it and acknowledge that there is certain things that I have never experienced that you have experienced. And I want to acknowledge your experience. I want to acknowledge your space, and definitely your, your upbringing. So it's definitely one of those things where it kind of shook me and made me realize, hey, like, I have a certain privilege for being, lighter skinned Latina and passing, like, as white. And it's easy for me to blend back and into the background and not claim my POC. And so I think it's definitely one of those things where I had to recognize, acknowledge it. And it really, for her and I, just like it, we were already like this salt and pepper everywhere. So that just definitely like made the perfect blend to really acknowledge her own experience and existence.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that with us, Elvira. It is very important to recognize people's struggle and to know that we see it and that we respect them and ask them, how can we help you in this struggle? I want to kind of go back a little bit because, Francisco, you were talking about like being Mexican, being American, and then like that kind of third like thing, and it brought me back to one of my favorite movies growing up as a kid, Selena, and the clip about Abraham talking about being more Mexican than the Mexican and more American than the American, and it's exhausting. And I kind of wanted to show it because I haven't showed a clip, Leah, in forever. Like we've done several episodes. I was like, man, I have not shown a clip, and so I found it. So I want to show it. So we're gonna take a look at it right
I'll
here.
give you a pass this time. Because I also just kind of want to watch a clip of Selena.
They want us to play Mexico?
Dad, a gig in Monterrey, Mexico,
Dad,
man.
that would be
That's big
so
time, dude.
cool.
I'm not sure of that right now.
Come on, Dad.
Hey, Dad, you always said everything's a risk, right?
They don't accept us with it. They never have.
Hello, we're Mexican.
No, we are Mexican American, and they don't like Mexican
That's
American.
all the same one,
and they can be
Hassan.
mean, and they can tear us apart over there.
Oh,
Selena's
right.
Spanish is.
What about my Spanish? I've been singing in Spanish for 10 years. It's perfect.
Singing, yes, but when you speak it a little funny. And down there, you gotta speak perfectly, or the press will eat you up and spit you out alive. I've seen them do it.
Overreacting as usual.
Dad, the music will speak for itself, Dad.
Listen, being Mexican American is tough. Anglos jump all over you if you don't speak English perfectly. Mexicans jump all over you if you don't speak Spanish perfectly. We gotta be twice as perfect as anybody else. Why are you laughing? What's so funny?
Nothing.
I'm serious.
I know
Our
you're
family
serious,
has
Dad.
been here for centuries, and yet they treat us as if we just swam across the Rio Grande. I mean, we gotta know about John Wayne and Pedro Infante. We gotta know about Frank Sinatra and Agustin Lara. We gotta know about Oprah and Christina. Anglo food is too bland, and yet when we go to Mexico, we get the runs. Now that, to me, is embarrassing.
Oh, Dad!
Japanese Americans, Italian Americans, German Americans, their homeland is on the other side of the ocean. Ours is right next door, right over there. And we gotta prove to the Mexicans how Mexican we are, and we gotta prove to the Americans how American we are. We gotta be more Mexican than the Mexicans and more American than the Americans, both at the same time. It's exhausting. Man, nobody knows how tough it is to be a Mexican American.
Well, Dad, it's a good thing we have frijoles and tortillas to keep our strength up for the job.
Now you're making
No, I'm not. A menudo.
Hey, menudo, hey.
Menudo.
now you're making me hungry.
Come on, Dad. I can do it. I know I can. Really.
Trust us.
Listen, guys, let's get through with the tour in California, and then we'll talk about it.
Just to like finish out the clip, Selena ends up going to Mexico and she wins them over, and it's a technique I actually use in my work where she ends up greeting the whole press and she's like, hola, hola, hello, hi, like, nice to see you. And she gets to the people's level and they respect her and she becomes a super mega star. And so that's something that I like incorporate in my work, especially with teenagers. Like when I go to class, like I'll stand next to the door and like shake their hand, like, hey, welcome. And then like I'll go down to the front and I'll start my presentation, and I have rapport with the students. But going back to that conversation, do you guys really what Abraham said? Do you guys resonate with that?
Yes. Some part of it, it's not, yes, definitely yes. It's funny because my family has a, I don't know about my family has a thing about, you know, not calling us by our names, but by like a nickname. And my nickname is Güera, which means blonde. And that was because when I was a baby, my hair was blonde. But of course it got darker because the ancestors kicked in and that was it of that. But so yeah, and it's funny because till this day my siblings call me Güera, my family, my aunts and uncles, everyone, my cousins, everyone calls me Güera. Because to them I'm the most American of all my like cousins who live here in the States, and I'm also the lighter skinned one and more lighter than, and actually my brother's more lighter skinned than I am, but for some weird reason, like um I'm the Weta. So yeah, definitely like I get what he was saying. And I've just grown up with the term and the nickname, and I actually every time I hear it, I'm just like, oh, like it's a response to our culture. So definitely it's hard. It's hard. I hear the struggle is real.
What about you, Francisco? Do you resonate with what Abraham was saying?
I do a little bit, just because like I'm not super close with like I guess like my Mexican side of the family, only because like my family's small to begin with, and so we only have like like some family members in Mexico, but even then I've never been close or traveled too much out there. Um, so that kind of separates me a little bit from the culture, but I know myself to be like Mexican American based on the culture here in the US, right? And based on the people I've met and my family here, and stuff like that. So I can relate in that sense. I mean, I remember like sometimes I like my white friends would be like, "Oh, you have an accent," and like they would tell me that. But then like my Latino friends, like they were like, "Oh no, like you speak normal, like I don't hear it," right? So like little things like that, I always thought they were funny, uh, which makes sense. I mean, my first language was Spanish, but um, yeah, I think it'll always be an interesting dynamic, and I think it's just because of our history, of the two countries and how much they've crossed over each other, so many times. Um, but I mean, I don't know. I guess that also like it's interesting about um how Elvira was talking about the nicknames, because yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm sure a lot of cultures do that as well, but um a lot of the nicknames that we do are based on like physical traits, um and a lot of the times it's like I don't know, I've always thought it was interesting how a lot of the times they do relate, they go back to colorism, even though we don't, like, for us it's like a cute little thing, but when we think about it in long term, it actually does go back to colorism and like favoring some people over others. So I've always thought that was interesting.
All right. So we've actually kind of touched on some of the different challenges within Latinx culture. Like I know in Black culture, there's challenges. In LGBT culture, there's challenges. Some of the greatest challenges within the Latinx community.
I mean, what initially comes to mind is mainly like the stereotypes I feel that people have about Latinos. So I mean, even like rhetoric that Trump would say, that we're violent people, that um, we come to steal jobs. So like these type of things, I mean, whether we believe it or not, they do stick to some people, and so then that's the image that they have of us. So that's always been a challenge because I feel like it's always been a stereotype. Like, or also like a lot of people, if they see you and they see that you're like dark skinned, they automatically assume maybe you don't speak English or things like that. um which again, it's like you shouldn't be assuming, but that's what happens. And then the other thing is like, well, I guess it's like challenges here, but I also know that a lot of people, they have this concept, and like, I'm just talking about Mexico. But a lot of people have this idea that like you can go to Mexico and just like party and it's like a wasteland and you could get drunk and you can disrespect people because it's Mexico and like no one cares and there's no rules. So I always thought that concept was interesting too, how even though we're in the same land, but Mexico is always seen as less than. It's always seen as like poverty, violence, drugs, cartels. But then the moment you cross back to the US, it's like you're in safe territory. Even though there's shootings here every so often as well,
True.
that go unreported. You know what I mean? So I think that misconception also plays into like the stereotypes that we already have.
All right, thank you for sharing. Elvira, do you have any opinion on this?
So yeah, I mean, just to add to what Francisco was saying, I think some of the stereotypes to add, it's like, I think there was a comedian said, I don't know how we're doing this. Apparently we're too lazy, but we're taking everyone's jobs. So, it was just the funniest thing, and I was just like, yeah, I mean, that apparently. So those stereotypes of like, even some of our own personal stereotypes that I think about, I recently I grew up in a very rural area of California, so I grew up very um you know just rural side of Riverside. And recently I purchased you know a nice car, let's just say that. And so I drove up to the market, and there was like this, like, you can tell there were these comadres talking and stuff like that. And obviously, because I'm a lighter skin Latina, I'm assumed not to speak proper Spanish. And the thing is that I'm probably most fluent than my siblings. Um, and even my sister, more fluent than my brother, but definitely my sister is the most fluent because she actually went to school in Mexico. Um, they assumed that I didn't speak English, Spanish, and so I heard I was getting back in the car after I was purchasing, and they just automatically assumed that they said something, de seguro esta tiene marido rico, meaning they're assuming, meaning for sure she probably has a rich husband. And I was just like, no.
You should be like, I wish.
I wish.
Like, I wish.
No, second of all, no, I purchased this with my hard-earned money. I went to school, I did my thing, and so it's just like one of those things that it's pretty interesting to see those dynamics that we, even within our own culture, we automatically assume, for me being a woman, Latina, that I wouldn't be able to afford something like that by myself, that I would have to have some sort of, you know, some sort of safety or background. And I started laughing because I thought it was the funniest thing, because they assumed that I didn't speak, Spanish. And I thought it was the funniest thing. So I told my mom, I came home and I told my mom about it, and she was laughing because it has happened to her as well, where, but for her, it's been more of, she's probably here because her husband sent her to take care of this. And in reality, she's the CEO and boss of the company. So she's the one that runs everything. So it's just an automatically assumption. But it's pretty interesting to see those dynamics. And it also comes from, I think it just comes from those stereotypes that we've placed, that also, in a way, our colonizers as well have placed those stereotypes on ourselves. And it's just pretty interesting to see how it has translated into our own culture. And but I thought it was the funniest thing. I was like, first of all, I don't have a husband. Second of all, you know, I'm here single, so I'm doing this thing on my own. So let me just enjoy this moment. But it was pretty interesting to see it and kind of laugh it out. And but it was interesting to see that dynamic and kind of observe that dynamic itself, and to see some of the stereotypes that we've encountered overall.
Yeah. Yeah. So some of the things that I want to recap is people think Latinos or Latin people or Latinx people are lazy, that they're here to steal jobs, that you need a man to get ahead. Um, and so these are some of the ideas that are some of the issues that are running around in the community. And obviously, some people, it does work that way for them. Other people, it doesn't. It doesn't apply to all people. And so we need to stop applying it to all people and get to know the individual people that we're talking about. And then, in your opinion, what do Latinx people need to do to turn the tide to work through these challenges? And how can other people support you?
I think we're starting to turn the tide. I think seeing individuals like Francisco who are highly educated and successful people, seeing one of the things that I've observed when I've introduced myself to people, especially within our community, and said, you know, this is my kind of my titles and this is what I'm here for, it inspires them. So I think what we're doing right now, as far as like, you know, fighting for the dreams that our parents installed in us, really one of the things that my dad taught me at a very young age, and this is something he still says, he says, I cannot give you like riches, I don't have anything to give you as an inheritance other than your education. And so this is the reason we came here, is to make sure that you had an opportunity for higher education, for more opportunities, not just in education, but entrepreneurship. And so if we, I think a lot of first generation um, people, including myself, we just need to continue to do what we're doing right now, which is um, continue to pour into our dreams, into our successes, but also not to forget where we came from. There's a Texas term, don't forget to dance with with the person, with the one that brung ya.
Yeah.
I think I heard it from Brene Brown. And
Yeah.
that quote really out to me, because it's important to reach out and, you know, give back to our communities, to continue to inspire kids that don't, probably at home, there's, you know, my cousins were raised a little bit different than I was, and for some of them it was either um, school or work, and sometimes the family would pressure them more to go to work and they didn't end up going to school. And so there's still that going on in our in that in within our culture, in a lot of families, especially in a lot of migrant families. So definitely one of those things to continue to push for our dreams, and not to forget to pour into our communities, when we not just when we reach those dreams, but as we're working towards those dreams.
I like that. I like that.
Yeah, it's along the lines of what Elvira said too. I think you know, well, I mean, I'm an educator as well, but I think knowledge is power, and I think knowledge is something that will get passed on, and no one can take that away from you. And I think like absolutely, like the work we're doing now, hopefully reaps benefits later on. Um, and it's not just, I mean, it's like it starts with education, but you know, we also need to apply what we're learning, and we need to actually like, and we do need to contribute back to our communities, because I've known a lot of people that don't, or they forgot, right, or you know, they're too high to acknowledge the people um that kind of began the journey with, you know. And honestly, yeah, I mean, maybe I feel like first generation people, because we are the first to kind of navigate through everything, we fight, and we fight hard, and we go like all the way, because that's like, it's either that or you fall down, you know. And because our parents basically sacrificed everything, we're not one to um kind of let go easily, right? So definitely as first generation, like we're always pushing boundaries, because that's all we've known, basically, right? That's all we've known our whole lives, and that's what we continue to do. um yeah, I think that that's mainly it, because I've seen it's because I don't know, sometimes I feel like maybe because I have older siblings, and I'm like, I wonder if like if they had a similar journey, like where would I be? um but I don't know, at the same time, I'm proud to be first generation. um but even like my younger brother, he hates school, so he never went to college. So I still feel like singled out because I'm the only one who did. But again, not that I feel any better than anyone. I think everyone has their journey, but it does motivate me though to whatever I do, whether it's academic or not. Like I'm always gonna push, and I'm always gonna go into it because that's all I've known.
All right, thank you.
I wanted to backtrack a little bit. Uh, so Lamont, your question was like, what do we need to do to work through these challenges, and how can people support you? So I just wanted to backtrack to like the stereotype thing, and I do think it's not like the responsibility of the people being stereotyped, and this goes for all cultures, to like be alone in getting rid of those stereotypes. I feel like it also probably mostly falls on to people outside of those cultures to like defend other people.
Yeah.
So I know I personally like don't allow people around me to take those stereotypes and be like, oh yeah, that's really funny, huh? And I'm like, no, it's not funny.
Yeah.
Because I know there's a lot of stereotypes for Polynesian people too, and I don't let that fly either. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, Leah, I think what you're saying is important. It's important for us to call out the injustices or things that aren't okay. I think we kind of talked about this when we talked about stigma reduction. Like, you have to speak up, you got to show up, you got to be willing to put yourself out there. And I know it's scary, and for some of us, it's going to take us a while to get there, but we do need to get there where we're standing up for everyone.
Can I just add a little bit of
Absolutely.
just to add, um, one of the things that I'm recently learning is to operate in my wholeness, right? Of who I am and operating in my wholeness. Um, One of the things that I've learned, and I think one of the things that we have to learn as Latinx community is that um, there we can't let us not dismiss what has happened and what we've been through, because we go through a lot, but also let us not sit in it and say, okay, this is what happens to me all, when this situation happens, or it's going to happen again. It's just the way that it is, and that's just that. Absolutely not. And we need to sit in, let us process what has happened, the traumas that we've encountered culturally, um, what we've been through the past, even in the past recent years. I feel like as a Latinx community, we have not caught a break from the deportations, the family separation, the children that were separated from their families at the border. We have not yet caught a break, I think. Even with the previous administration or the one before that one, I don't think we've really caught a break as a community. But at the same time, I don't want to just catch a break. I want to be able to transform and be able to pour into my community as an advocate, as and not allow them to. Yes, we need to process the trauma that has happened, the fear that's been installed in our community. We definitely need to address it, and we cannot excuse it anymore. I guess that's what I mean. and not use it also to say, well, this is what's happening. I think often we see that it's easier to dismiss it, deny it, and then move away from it and kind of go into a different side of the situation. We can't do that either. So we have to definitely acknowledge it, recognize it, be heal from it, and transform the entire situation. And I think the only way we're going to do that is if we continue to just reach for better, just to get more representation on the table, and really, 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 like Francisco said, let us not forget, because there's people behind us that need it. So definitely we need to get on the table and just nonstop and fight for that place on the table. And if we have to take somebody we got to do what we got to do to make sure that we create a space for ourselves, because enough is enough.
Enough is enough. Let's come together. I think it would be a great time for a break, Leah.
All right, let's do that, and then we'll be right back. Lamont, today's conversation has reminded me about growing up in California.
I love California. I know you love Hawaii, but I love California.
But yes, it reminded me about my time growing up in California. So I thought, what better of an activity to do than take a quiz to see how Californian we are?
Ooh, let's do it. Let's do it. I hope it's like, what if I take the quiz and I'd be like,
0.
You are not California.
Right?
You need to leave like right now. Relocate to Texas.
I'm pretty sure you'll do better than me because I haven't lived in California for like 11 years now.
Has it really been that long?
Yeah, it's almost as long as when I lived in California.
Oh.
Wow. Anyway, let's take this quiz.
All right.
This quiz is 10 questions long. All right?
Okay.
So first question is, which is the state flower of California?
Holy
the sagebrush, the poppy, the Cherokee rose, or the orange blossom?
I want to say the poppy, but then, California is known for their oranges. So I don't know. Like, I'm going to go with the poppy, but okay. I might regret it.
Poppy, final answer. All right, next. Hearing Spanish spoken every day would make you feel stimulated, a little nervous, like I was in a foreign country, angry or kind of frustrated, or right at home?
Right at home.
All right. Question 3. What might the term animal style refer to?
We are referring to the In-N-Out.
Now I'm hungry, bro.
Yeah, the In-N-Out fries or burger or whatever.
All right, so the options, even though you already answered it, is the way we party in California, dude.
That's true.
Releasing some stress, surfing, or a way to order food.
I think 3 of those are true, but the way to order food would be the correct answer.
All right, question 4. You overhear someone say, bro, in Cali we love surfing so much that it's like a religion. You know immediately that they are not from California. How? Option 1, surfing isn't really such a big deal in California. 2, it would be weird for a surfer to compare something to a religion. Or 3, real Californians never say Cali.
No, we do say Cali, so that's not true. I would say surfing isn't really such a big deal in California. I would say it's more of a bigger deal in your state.
Yeah, I would agree. I know there's a lot of people who say real Californians don't say Cali, but I say Cali a lot, actually.
I say Cali a lot. Like, it's abbreviation.
Yeah. Okay, number 5. What's the first thing you would do in the event of an earthquake? 1, crawl under some heavy furniture. 2, jump in the pool. 3, run toward a window. Or 4, check Facebook.
I believe the correct answer is 1, crawl under some heavy furniture. But I'm pretty sure most people check their Facebooks first in the event of an earthquake.
I'm under the piano at my house checking Facebook. All right, question 6. Which fast food chain did not begin in California?
Oh.
Option 1, McDonald's. 2, In-N-Out. 3, Taco Bell. Or 4, Sonic.
Taco Bell did. I want to say McDonald's did, but I could be wrong.
This one threw me for a loop too.
In-N-Out is definitely a California. So
Yeah.
Taco Bell, In-N-Out for sure.
Yeah.
It's either between Sonic and McDonald's. I'm gonna go with Sonic.
Okay.
No, I'm gonna go with McDonald's.
Okay.
I'm gonna go with McDonald's.
Okay. McDonald's. Final answer. Next. All right. Question 7. Which word is most commonly associated with NorCal slang? 1, hella. 2, weasel. 3, gnarly. And 4, sunbreaks.
I'm gonna say it's between hella and gnarly. I didn't even know that's how you spell gnarly.
Yeah, that's how you spell gnarly.
I'm gonna say gnarly. Let's go with gnarly.
All right. Question 8. You visit your friend in another state and discover that her town doesn't offer curbside recycling. You, 1, just toss all your bottles and cans in the garbage. 3, separate your recyclables even though it's going to the same place. Or 3, drive your bottles and cans to another town that recycles.
drive your bottles and cans to another town that recycles. Especially if you're trying to get the money. If you're not trying to get the money, then I'll just toss the bottles in the trash can or the garbage.
Okay, which one?
Drive your bottles and cans to another town that recycles.
Okay.
We are big recyclers here in Cali, so I think that's like the correct answer.
All right, 9. This is a taco truck. How does it make you feel? 1, kind of afraid. 2, curious. Or 3, hungry.
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 Hungry. Californians love their not their taco trucks. Californians love their food trucks. They just love them.
All right, and last question. After an epic week at Burning Man, you wake up on a beach somewhere. What question do you ask the locals to find out if you're in NorCal or SoCal? 1, are you a Giants fan or a Dodgers fan? 2, what kind of car do you drive? 3, who's got the best burritos? San Francisco or LA? Or 4, what's the nearest freeway?
What's the nearest freeway, probably? Although I really do like who got the best burritos.
I'm going to start an argument.
Obviously, LA has the best burritos.
There you go.
Obviously.
There's only one answer. All right, let's submit this and see what your results are. All right, Lamont, your results are 67% California. Maybe you weren't born here, but at least you headed west as early as you could. The governor approves.
Whatever. I was totally born here. I was born in Orange County, Santa Ana, 1987. Moved to Reno Valley, California, where Leah and I met, and I grew up there for 18 years. Don't tell me I'm not from California.
You want to know what my results were?
Yes. What were your results?
68.
You got one more percent.
But I don't know. I want to look up if where McDonald's was
Originated? Let's solve that mystery.
because
right.
I said McDonald's, but I don't know. Oh no, dude! It started in San Bernardino.
Holy crap! Then it was Sonic. Look
It
up
was Sonic, so you were right about that one. Whoa, I didn't know it was right.
I didn't know
there.
it started in San Bernardino. Like
It was
I'm living
right
in
there.
Colton, San Bernardino County. So
It was right there. Wow.
yeah.
It was right next to home. All right. Well, I guess you're only 67% Californian.
They can. I'm not gonna say what they can do, 'cause we'll get canceled. But you know what they could do. Let's get back to our guest.
All right, let's do this. Thank you guys so much for coming on the Lamont and Leah podcast to talk with us today. Before you guys go, if someone wanted to reach out to you guys, talk with you, or maybe have, further this discussion, what would be the best way for someone to reach out? Elvira.
Well, you can reach me at Instagram. I think it's you guys can find me. It's Elvira K. Vargas. But mostly emails. So I'll just put my email out there. Just go ahead and email me if you have any questions or further this conversation. Definitely, if you send mean comments on my email, you're gonna be blocked.
Send mean comments on her email. Lamont and I are going to come to your house.
So, and I'll just say my email. It's elvivarge@gmail.com. And you guys can reach out to me that way if you want to further that conversation, or if you need resources about mental health, about anything that you might need as far as mental health, especially in the Latinx community. Mental health is something we definitely need to eventually talk about. But definitely, if you will need resources as far as mental health or anything like that, just reach out. I'm willing to um, find a place for you. And or if you just want to add another friend and be a friend, hey, I welcome new friends. So definitely.
Awesome. Thank you. And Francisco, how can we reach out to you?
Yeah, I'm also on Instagram, Fran J Rod, basically. So my name shortened. And then also my email is the same, but franjrod@gmail.com. So it's pretty simple. You can also find me on LinkedIn. So I like to stay active on LinkedIn, sort of, kind of. Um, and yeah, and basically, I'm always open to projects, to whether community-based project or academic projects. I like to be involved. um I recently did like a 5K run for to raise funds for Palestinian refugees. So just like literally things like that. And obviously also any LGBT resources or related things as well is pretty much in my ballpark. But yeah, feel free to find me.
Speaking of projects, Leah.
Are there any projects that you guys are working on that you want to share and tell everyone about?
Sure. So I'm currently working on something called Kingdom Intellects, which is a project that I'm working on to also, I'm also going to be creating a podcast for it and an Instagram page for it, which is pretty exciting. It's just basically a Kingdom Intellects is a network of young professionals who have a background, who believe in Christ. And we just want to, I think one of the things that I was talking to a friend about is just, I feel like um, the the church has a little bit of dismissed the new young millennials and Gen Zers, to because we are more diverse and we are definitely more conscious of how power and control installed in the church, and we're just like, we don't want any part of that. And so I think we need to create avenues for our communication, avenues for networking, and just avenues to make sure that we are connecting with other POCs that are also in the faith and who are just wanting to have a safe space to kind of communicate some of their thoughts and their beliefs, and how do we, just create that atmosphere. So I'm currently working on that. That's my next project. I'm looking forward to it, of sharing that, and everyone's welcome. So
All right, that sounds exciting.
I'm organizing a TED Talk with Cal State University San Bernardino. This is going to be the second
Yeah.
time we do it, so that's pretty exciting. Um, but besides that, I'm not doing much, unfortunately, because I am leaving California for a while. I'm teaching out at Florida,
Oh,
so I'm
wow.
actually going to be down. So we will see how that goes, but you can still reach me and ask me any questions or anything like that, and I'll be more than happy to help and contribute in any way.
All right, how exciting. So, last time you were on our podcast, you talked about the first time you guys were organizing the TED Talks. How did that go?
Yeah, that went pretty well. I mean, because of COVID, it was online, so there wasn't much of a like a fuzz about getting together and celebrating and all that good stuff. Sponsors. It was just very simple. It was a link YouTube video. All the speakers were there. Like basically, the video team, did their magic, and the video was awesome. It had over 1,000 views, and after like 4 days.
Wow.
So it's just good stuff, right? And really, really good topics and conversations that I think a lot of students and faculty and just community found really interesting.
So, lastly, guys, is there a message that's just in your heart that you would like to share with us today? It doesn't have to be about the subject, it can be about anything.
remember to live your wholeness. So live everything about you, who you are, and don't, even your strengths, even your weaknesses, like live out your wholeness. And remember that you do have a purpose. So it doesn't matter whether you are within the Latinx community or wherever you're at, or you're part of the LGBTQIA community, it doesn't matter. Live out your purpose. Does not matter where you come from or what you've been through. Live out your purpose, live out your calling, and remember that you are whole. You've been through it all, you've been through some stuff, and they have affected you, but it's okay. Those are part of our experiences. Those are part of what our stories, and let us not be defined by that, and just focus on our wholeness and living out a whole life, and our identities. Just living them out and being who you are, and living out your purpose. So whether it be here in California or in Florida, so live out your purpose.
Thank you for that.
Thank you,
I like
Elvira.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to just say, even though white people or any people, like, they always want POC to educate themselves, but you know what? The history is there, the research is there. They should do their own. Also, we shouldn't always have to be educating those people. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
I believe in working together, and we can collaborate, but we shouldn't have to do the work for them. And then close with my tattoo, which says, "Trust the voice within." So just always trust your voice within.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. Today's life lesson is embracing your culture. Growing up, being a Black person in America, and hearing a lot of negative stereotypes that surrounded being Black, my initial reaction was to reject my so-called culture. This was easy at first because I had no sense of tradition or cultural ties to my heritage. Being a mixed person, I gravitated to my Latin heritage. Later, I would learn to respect the people that had lost their lives for being Black or African American. Later, I would realize my culture is an American culture, and that's okay. Today's life lesson is about embracing all the different aspects of your culture. Understanding that many of us are multicultural and we are beautiful. I stand before you as African American, sometimes referred to as Black, Costa Rican, Adventist, and an American. And these are all different parts of me, and I embrace them all. Will you embrace the different parts of you? And that is today's life lesson.